Wealth is built in the mind before it appears in the account. Think about that for a second. Because before any fortune ever existed, before the investments, the businesses, or the bank balances, there was a mindset, a way of seeing the world that most people never develop. So, let me ask you something. Do you really think like the wealthy, or are you just trying to make more money? The truth is, most people chase income, not wealth. They believe the next raise, the next client, or the next side hustle will finally give them financial peace. But for the elite, for those who quietly accumulate freedom while the rest hustle harder, the real game is mental. They understand that wealth is not an event. It's a system of thinking. This video isn't about tips or tricks. It's about perspective, the kind that shapes every decision, every risk, and every opportunity. Because the rich don't just know more about money, they think about it differently. They question what others accept. They see patterns in chaos. And most importantly, they let time work for them instead of fighting against it. Over the next few minutes, we're going to uncover the 10 invisible principles that separate financial elites from everyone else. Principles built from decades of observation, from self-made millionaires, behavioral finance research, and the timeless patterns behind wealth creation. These aren't secrets. They're mental frameworks, quiet habits of thought that most people overlook. But once you internalize them, your relationship with money will never be the same. You'll start seeing opportunities others miss. You'll stop reacting to fear and start acting with clarity. Because at the end of the day, financial success isn't about how fast you can make money. It's about how deeply you understand it. And that understanding begins with the mind. Most people don't fail with money because they're lazy or careless. They fail because they're playing the wrong game. From an early age, we're taught a simple formula. Work hard, earn more, spend wisely, and someday, you'll be financially secure. But look around. How many people do you know who actually reach that point? We live in a society where incomes rise, but stress, debt, and uncertainty rise even faster. Why? Because the problem isn't income, it's mental software. You see, the average person measures wealth through cash flow. How much comes in and goes out? The wealthy measure it through ownership. How much keeps working when they stop? One plays the short-term game of survival. The other plays the long-term game of freedom. Let's make this real. Someone gets a raise. They buy a bigger car, upgrade their apartment, maybe book that long-awaited vacation. For a while, life feels better, until the new bills arrive. Another person finally starts investing, but they panic at the first market dip, sell everything, and swear that investing doesn't work. Both are trapped in the same pattern, reacting emotionally to money instead of thinking strategically about it. This isn't a lack of discipline, it's a lack of mental structure. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't belong to those who work the hardest. It belongs to those who think the longest. The elite understand this intuitively. They operate by principles that most people never question, like patience, delayed gratification, and emotional control. They see money not as a tool for status, but as a mirror reflecting how well they manage their own impulses. The middle class seeks comfort. The wealthy seek clarity. The middle class wants quick wins. The wealthy want systems that compound. The middle class spends to feel successful. The wealthy build to stay free. But here's the hopeful part. Anyone can change this. The mental gap isn't genetic, it's learned. And that means it can be relearned. In this video, that's exactly what we're going to do. Reprogram the way you think about money from the inside out. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. You'll start noticing how advertising, social pressure, and even your upbringing have silently shaped your financial behavior. You'll realize that the real enemy isn't inflation or taxes. It's distraction. It's comparison. It's the constant urge to look rich instead of becoming independent. And that's why this matters. Because the moment you shift from spending money to studying money, your entire life changes trajectory. You stop asking, "How can I earn more?" and start asking, "How can I make my money work harder than I do?" That's the mindset of the financial elite. A quiet, strategic, long-term awareness that sees wealth not as accumulation, but as alignment. Before we dive deep, let's zoom out and see the bigger picture. The mental architecture behind lasting wealth. Everything you're about to hear comes down to 10 core principles. Not tactics, not shortcuts, but mental models that shape how the financial elite see the world. These 10 principles are invisible to most people, yet they govern every decision the wealthy make. They determine when they act, when they wait, and how they stay calm while everyone else panics. Here's what to expect. You'll learn why the rich think in decades, not days. Why they chase value, not headlines. Why sometimes the smartest move is to do nothing at all. You'll see how they use liquidity like a hidden superpower, and how understanding risk gives them control in uncertain times. You'll discover that they own, not just participate, and that their calm confidence comes from knowing the rules others don't even realize exist. And then, there's the 8th principle, the one that separates millionaires from billionaires, the one that multiplies everything else they do. By the end of this journey, you won't just think differently about money, you'll see it differently. Because once you start operating by these invisible rules, wealth stops feeling like a chase and starts feeling like a process. 1. Wealth begins in the mind. Every fortune starts as an idea, a decision to think differently. While most people focus on how to make more money, the wealthy focus on how to think better about money. They understand that financial success is rarely about intelligence, it's about perspective. The average person thinks in months, paychecks, bills, expenses. The wealthy think in decades, cycles, trends, and compounding. Take Warren Buffett, for example. His wealth didn't come from complex trading strategies, it came from time. From holding good decisions long enough to let compounding do the work. The elite know that impatience is expensive. They use long-term thinking as a competitive advantage. If you want to think like them, start by expanding your timeline. Ask yourself, what decision today will matter 10 years from now? Because wealth doesn't grow faster, it grows longer. 2. They buy value, not headlines. The average investor follows excitement. The wealthy follow logic. When the market is euphoric, the crowd rushes in. When fear hits, the crowd runs away. But the elite move in the opposite direction because they've learned to see beyond the noise. They understand that most opportunities are undervalued precisely when they feel uncomfortable. While others chase trends, they study fundamentals. While others ask, "Is it going up?" they ask, "Is it worth it?" Think about this. Some of the greatest fortunes in history were built when everyone else was afraid. When the headlines screamed panic, the wealthy saw preparation. They don't follow the market. They read it like a story about human emotion. Here's the lesson. Stop chasing popularity. Start chasing value. Before making your next financial move, pause and ask, if no one else knew about this, would I still believe in it? That's how independent wealth begins. Not in the crowd, but in conviction. 3. The power of doing nothing. This might be the hardest principle for modern minds to accept. In a world that glorifies constant action, The wealthy understand the art of strategic inaction. They know that wealth isn't built by always doing more, it's preserved by knowing when to wait. Markets, businesses, and even life itself move in cycles. The impatient react to every wave. The wise wait for the tide. During the 2020 market crash, countless investors panicked and sold everything. Those who stayed still, who trusted their strategy, saw their wealth multiply when the market recovered. Sometimes, doing nothing is not laziness. It's discipline. The elite treat patience as a superpower. They understand that inactivity, when guided by a clear plan, compounds results. If you find yourself anxious to do something, remember this. Every move has a cost in time, attention, and emotional energy. Sometimes, the most profitable action is to stay still and let your plan breathe. These first three principles form the foundation of the wealthy mindset. Think long-term. Value substance over noise. Master patience. Together, they shift you from reacting to money to commanding it. 4. Risk is what you don't understand. To the average person, risk feels like danger. To the wealthy, risk feels like ignorance. They don't fear the stock market, real estate, or entrepreneurship. They fear not understanding them. Because in their mind, risk isn't a number. It's a knowledge gap. Think about it. Two people invest in the same asset. One feels anxious, checking the price every hour. The other feels calm, confident, patient. The difference? One studied what they own, the other just followed someone else's advice. The elite approach every opportunity with a simple mindset. If I can't explain it clearly, I'm not ready to invest in it. They remove risk by replacing uncertainty with understanding. That's why they read, research, and surround themselves with people smarter than they are. They don't see learning as optional. They see it as insurance. Because the greatest risk is never the market. It's entering a game you don't understand. 5. The power of invisible liquidity. Liquidity is like oxygen. You don't notice it until it's gone. Most people stay broke not because they lack income, but because they lack flexibility. They tie up every dollar in things that look successful but move slowly. The wealthy think differently. They always keep dry powder, cash ready to deploy when opportunity knocks. When markets crash, the crowd panics. But the elite? They wait. They buy the assets everyone else is desperate to sell. They understand that cash is not laziness. It's leverage. It's the privilege of being prepared when others are not. Having liquidity gives them patience. It allows them to think, not react. And that's exactly why they grow richer during chaos, because they have room to act while others are trapped. So remember, wealth isn't only about what you own. It's about what you can move when it matters most. Keep some of your power in liquid form, not for safety, but for opportunity. 6. They own. They don't just participate. This is one of the most subtle but powerful differences between the middle class and the financial elite. The middle class participates in the economy. They consume. They invest passively. They follow trends. The wealthy own the economy. They buy the businesses, real estate, and systems that others depend on. Ownership gives them what participation never can: control. When you own, you sleep better at night. You don't worry about the next market swing because your wealth is tied to real value, not speculation. You're not at the mercy of someone else's decision. You are the decision maker. That's why the elite love equity. They think like founders, not customers. They seek ownership not for ego, but for freedom. Every dollar they invest is a quiet vote for autonomy. And every asset they control, whether a small business, a property, or a share of a great company becomes another gear in their machine of freedom. So ask yourself, are you renting your lifestyle, or are you owning your future? They're not chasing money. They're building systems that make money chase them. 7. They use the market. They're not used by it. The average investor sees the market as a casino. The wealthy see it as a mirror. For most people, investing triggers emotions: fear, greed, anxiety, excitement. The constant noise of headlines and predictions pulls them in and out of positions, reacting instead of reasoning. But the elite approach the market with calm detachment. They know volatility isn't the enemy. It's the price of admission for long-term growth. They use emotion as data. When the crowd is euphoric, they start getting cautious. When panic spreads, they start getting curious. They understand that markets don't create fear, people do. And those emotions leave patterns that can be read, studied, and leveraged. So while the average person's net worth rises and falls with every price swing, the wealthy use those swings to grow stronger. They let the market work for them, not against them. If you can stay calm while others lose control, you already have a financial advantage. Because in the world of wealth, emotional control is alpha. 8. They invest in learning. Here lies the principle that separates millionaires from billionaires. The average person stops learning after school. The wealthy treat learning as a lifelong investment, one that compounds faster than any stock or property ever could. They read voraciously, ask questions relentlessly, and pay mentors gladly. They know the return on knowledge is exponential. One good idea can save decades of mistakes. Warren Buffett once said, "The best investment you can make is in yourself." The elite live by that. They don't just study finance, they study psychology, systems, history, and human behavior. They understand that markets change, but mental models evolve. The smarter you get, the more opportunities you see, and the less you need luck. Every book, course, or conversation becomes part of their wealth engine. Because when you know how money works, you'll always know how to create it. So ask yourself, when was the last time you invested in your own understanding? The poor buy entertainment. The wealthy buy education. 9. They speak little and observe. Much silence is underrated in a loud world. The wealthy don't need to prove they're smart, successful, or right. They let results speak. While others broadcast every move, they listen to the market, to behavior, to people's incentives, because observation reveals patterns that talking hides. They notice who's disciplined and who's impulsive. They sense where trends are forming long before they appear on the news. Discretion protects them. It keeps emotions quiet and opportunities private. They understand that attention attracts noise, and noise distorts clarity. That's why many of the world's wealthiest people live quietly, invest silently, and act strategically. They don't crave validation. They crave vision. If you want to think like the elite, stop trying to be noticed. Start trying to understand. Because wealth grows in silence and is lost in noise. 10. Wealth is freedom, not display. This final principle ties everything together. The goal of wealth isn't luxury, it's liberty. While most people chase the appearance of success, cars, brands, lifestyles, the elite chase control over their time. They understand that real wealth isn't about buying more things. It's about needing less approval. Money is simply a tool to buy choices. Where you live, how you spend your time, who you work with, and what you focus on. When you control those choices, you're free, and that's something no price tag can match. The wealthy know that showing off wealth only attracts envy. Living on purpose attracts peace. And that's the great paradox. When you stop trying to look rich, you finally create the space to become rich, in money, in mindset, and in meaning. These final principles reveal the emotional and philosophical core of financial mastery. The wealthy don't just manage money, they manage themselves. They use the market as a tool, treat learning as leverage, embrace silence as strategy, and pursue freedom as the ultimate return on investment. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of wealth isn't to escape work. It's to work only on what truly matters. We've talked about principles, strategies, and mindsets, but let's bring it all home. Because at the heart of everything we've explored lies one truth. Money follows mastery of self. You can't control the markets, the economy, or other people's opinions, but you can control your thoughts, your habits, and your patience. And that's exactly where wealth begins. Most people try to earn freedom through force, by working harder, chasing more, doing everything faster. But the wealthy learn that freedom isn't earned through speed, it's earned through clarity. They don't run after money. They build systems that make money come to them, quietly, steadily, predictably. The difference is internal. They think long-term when others think emotionally. They act from conviction, not from comparison. They define success not by appearance, but by autonomy. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, do you want to look rich, or do you want to be free? Because freedom doesn't come from having everything you want. It comes from understanding what you truly need. Every financial decision you make is really a psychological one. Every dollar you spend or save is a vote for the future you believe in. And over time, those small, quiet decisions are what separate those who seem successful from those who stay successful. The secret isn't luck. It's mental discipline. It's the calm confidence to say, I don't need to rush, my plan is working. So as you move forward, remember this simple line. Money doesn't follow movement, it follows mastery. And mastery begins in the mind. If this video opened your mind, don't let it stop here. The gap between knowing and growing is action. So before you move on, take a moment to choose one principle from the 10 we've explored. Just one. And commit to applying it today. Maybe it's thinking long-term. Maybe it's building liquidity. Maybe it's simply learning instead of reacting. Because change doesn't start with income. It starts with intention. And if this message resonated with you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because we rise faster when we think differently together. Now I want to ask you directly, which of these 10 principles do you need to apply most in your life right now? Drop it in the comments, not for me, but for yourself. Writing it down is how you make it real. At the end of the day, wealth isn't about numbers, it's about time. Because when your money works for you, your time becomes yours again. And that's the real victory. Waking up without urgency, choosing what matters, and living life on your own terms. True wealth isn't measured by what you can buy. It's measured by what you can walk away from. It's the quiet confidence of knowing you don't need to prove anything to anyone. Remember this, real wealth is when time works for you, not the other way around. So keep evolving your mindset. Keep questioning old beliefs. Keep building not just assets, but awareness. Because freedom doesn't happen overnight. It happens thought by thought, choice by choice. And if you've come this far, you're already thinking differently than most people ever will. Stay on that path. Because wealth isn't just something you earn, it's something you become. Continue expanding your mind. because the journey to financial freedom always begins inside it.